I began my work, if I saw one child with cancer, I'll never forget the first child I saw from Montana. The child's mother and father came in a rusty, oh, this is a true story, a rusty old pickup truck to Boston. And where we were in Boston, we were in old brownstone, a Victorian brownstone, and they were a little out of their element there. And they walked in and they couldn't write. I mean, literally, they couldn't write and read. They were cattle ranchers from up there. And they brought their little boy in who looked like he was pregnant. I remember being shocked seeing this boy. I'd never seen anything like that in my life. I was just a boy myself. I was in my 20s. And I see his stomach. And I said to the father, who was just so genuine, I just never forget how clear and straight and truthful this mother and father were. Maybe they weren't educated, but they were complete. And I said, why did you come here from Montana? They said, we knew the state would take our boy away from us. Because when we told our doctor that we weren't going to get any of these treatments, because all of our friends, children get cancer too, you know. I said, what do you mean? They said, oh, half the children born out there where we are, they get cancer. This was the 1970s, people. And once we started to act up, the doctor called the state, tried to keep us in the office, and said, the state's got to take our children away. We're going to abuse our child. So we got in our pickup truck, we came here. Can you help us save our child's life? You know, in your country, if you refuse to do mainstream pharmaceutical treatment, your children can be taken away from you. And you know what's even worse than that? Fellow Canadians are going to be saying, you deserve it. What kind of a culture is it that we let that happen? I mean, think about this, people. You've got to really think. And until you provoke how strange you are and how strange this culture is, you're not going to want to change. And you've got to laugh about it, because you have an option. I could sit and cry 24 hours a day now, seeing what I'm seeing. You know, it's getting younger and younger. Per capita, 35-year-old people are sicker than 65-year-old people. Our government, that never tells the truth about anything, literally told us 2 years ago that children born today, and Canada is the same as us, children born today will die 5 years sooner than their parents. That's the first time in human history that's happened. I was so appalled at that, I called and found the mathematics from the Disease Control Center and found out by the year 2015, count your numbers, that's 6 years away, that children will probably be dying 12 years sooner than their parents. And the big one is, it starts with an O, called obesity. Now we became so addicted, so out of our mind, so led by our nose, that literally we're turning our addiction lock, stock, and barrel over to our children and grandchildren. We're teaching our children it's perfectly fine to sit on their butt in front of a computer and watch television all day long and not go out and play. And it's perfectly fine to mom and dad go through a drive-through fast food restaurant and bring home a big bottle of Coca-Cola or Pepsi-Cola and feed that to the kids at night. And sausage for breakfast. And eggs. I mean, it's unbelievable. Eggs have, one egg has 230 grams of cholesterol. You know how much you need? None. And of course the egg industry says, oh, eggs are a great source of food. Yes, for a fox. Because a fox is the only creature on the earth that can digest an egg, not you. It becomes instantaneous sludge in your body. It's nuts. We're crazy. And as Anna said to you, she said something more important than I said tonight. Just because we have patterns and we keep doing the same things, do not think it's normal. Remember, if you look back not long ago, we were radically different. But what happens is things slip up on you. Things slip up on you pretty quick. And before you know it, you think, well, gee, you know, this has been going on forever. I hear people say to me, oh, these people used to live a lot shorter than we do. You know how they got you on that one? This is called relative numbers. They play with the numbers. There was something called infant mortality in my grandmom's generation. And why? Because modern medicine wasn't here. So let's applaud modern medicine. Modern medicine brought x-rays in. Yeah, they give you radiation, but they save a hell of a lot of lives. And now the radiation's down 90% of what it was 30 years ago. And so it's killing less people and showing us more evidence. So now I can see in a mother's womb if an umbilical cord is wrapped around, or the baby's breech turned the wrong way in the body. And do you realize that 1/4 of every family's children would die at birth or before they were 1? It was called infant, or is called infant mortality. So modern medicine, congratulate them, brought that down to a very, very small level of people. And so if you take children dying at birth, shockingly high amounts of them, and people living to 100, the average life expectancy would have been 50. You wipe out infant mortality, it goes up to 76. We're all excited and say, oh, look at, we're living longer. Now, how dumb are we? Look at the way diseases are moving. It's impossible for people to believe that. Almost half of you are going to die from a heart attack or stroke, of which, listen closely, 2% I'll call a disease. 98% of that is lifestyle choice. The only cardiovascular disease that's true is that in about 2% of the cases their valves do not work. Everything else is what? Sludge in the arteries from a lack of aerobic exercise and eating animal fat. Period. So how do you, quote, cure? There's no such thing as a cure, but how do you cure cardiovascular disease? Get people off their fat ass and get them to stop eating animal fat. Period. Will it work? I promise you, it will work 98% of the cases of cardiovascular disease. How do I know that? I've seen thousands of people do it. What is diabetes type 2? It is a lifestyle choice. It is not a disease. If you sit around eating enough fat, because it's first started by fat, by the way, and the fat smothers the cell, and so now the cell can't take in the glucose, which is a very important food. Now the glucose floats around in the bloodstream, and we call it blood sugar. Oh, interesting, isn't it? Then your poor pancreas can't take that amount of blood sugar and make it work. You end up with either low blood sugar or high blood sugar. How do I know this? Because 100% of the people that have type 2 diabetes, if they do what we suggest, eating raw food, exercising, will get well. I've never seen somebody do it that did not get well, and they get well so quick, it's probably the most dangerous thing we do. Because we've got to get people off the what? The insulins. Because if you don't get them off the insulin when they don't need it, they'll go into shock. So if you start to wise up and become mature, sensible, and get rid of your addictions, and adapt the living food lifestyle that Hippocrates have developed over the last 53 years, with success in 250,000 people, basically you better watch your insulin. You better get a glucometer and watch it several times a day, because you're not going to need it very rapidly. Worst cases take 6 months. Most cases take 3 months, and we have about 15 or 20% that by the time they're done with our program, they're off insulin, and some of them have been on insulin for 30, 40 years. You say, oh, that's impossible. It's impossible for me to believe we're that dumb to think it's a disease.